Today I'm going to be addressing the problem with shaky bow. I got asked about this and I decided to make a separate video on it because it's addressing a topic that I kind of need to elaborate more on. These are the things I've learned from my years of playing violin. I'm gonna address 3 reasons why you might be having shaky bow and how you should go about fixing it. You want to draw your bow like this with no bumps, right? But when you have shaky bow, it kind of unintentionally makes breaks in the sound, kind of like I don't really know how to demonstrate like that kind of thing. This is actually quite a common problem between players, generally, beginner players and advanced players. I personally struggle with this often, more often than I would like, because mostly when I get nervous or if I'm performing for somebody, so it's nothing to, feel bad about. The first reason why you might be having this issue has nothing to do like while you're playing. So you won't need your violin. Okay, the issue that you may be having is with your bow hold or your bow arm posture in general. When you draw your bow and bow your instrument, you want your hand and your arm to be relaxed with not a lot of tension. So the problem you may be having is that you might be putting too much strength into your arm or your wrist or your fingers, especially your fingers and your bow hold. This needs to be quite flexible and relaxed in order to make a good sound quality. I think a huge part of why you're putting too much tension in these areas is because this is not a natural thing to do for hours on end or anything, because you're not used to doing that on a regular basis, right? So what you need to do is release tension. That's your goal, because you want to make it feel as natural as possible. What I would suggest is to check up on your bow arm posture. Look at the mirror a lot when you're practicing, because self-check really does help the most. You realize what you're doing and it just makes you aware of your posture so you can fix it for later on. As for your bow hold, there's a lot of exercises you can do with that. Just make sure that your thumb is curved at all times. This plays a big role in flexibility and tone in the bow, as well as your pinky. You should be able to move these fingers while you bow. An exercise that helped me significantly is the pinky push-up, even though it doesn't have a lot to do with specifically with the bow hold. It has a lot to do with your finger strength and flexibility. It allows you to check up on your fingers to see if they're able to move around or not. So I'll give a demonstration. You want to hold up your bow, straight arm the way you normally would, then slowly put down your bow. And then with your pinky strength, pull up your bow again. Don't do it with your arm or your wrist. It's purely with your pinky strength. So again, your wrist should not be the one generating the lift. It should be your finger. This move really helped me a lot because it made me realize how dependent I am on my arm weight instead of my finger weight when I was playing the violin. And this may be really uncomfortable or difficult at first because, again, it's something that you're not used to, but it's going to become easier over time. And once you get used to it, you're going to see improvements in your sound quality. The second and third reasons go hand in hand their bow speed and bow pressure. I don't really have specific exercises for this, but I would recommend you experiment on open strings. You might be experiencing different restraints of your sound quality because you have too much pressure or you have too less pressure. For shaky bow, it most likely means you're putting way too little pressure on your bow. It also might be happening because you place your bow on top of the fingerboard or near the fingerboard. Once you put it on top of the fingerboard, it produces a less healthy sound, and if you combine that with less pressure, then it can become a very unhealthy and unwanted sound. So that might be a factor. You also want to try to experiment with putting a little bit more bow pressure onto your string when you're playing. And if this is too hard for you, don't try to put pressure on it like this forcefully. That's going to be uncomfortable in the long run. What you want to do is try to assert your natural bow pressure. Try to assert your natural arm pressure, arm weight onto the bow, so that way it will be easier. A lot of this has to do with experimentation. I recommend a lot to experiment with open strings and only focus on bow pressure. Experiment how different sorts of pressure, different levels of pressure affect your sound quality. And this kind of pressure, to keep the sound quality constant throughout different parts of the bow, you need to be able to learn what kind of pressure is appropriate at what part of the bow. So for example, at the frog, if you put on light pressure, then it will sound somewhat healthy. But if you put the same amount of pressure up on the top of the bow, it will sound less healthy. Because it's further from the frog, which has a lot of weight in the bow. So that means you have to put more pressure towards the top of the bow. If you want to stop with your shaky bow, experiment on trying to go towards the middle between the fingerboard and the bridge. So experiment with what pressure results in a constant sound quality in your bow. This is different for everyone. It's something that you should figure out. I personally would use similar means to approach the bow speed. Faster bow speed can result to shaky bow. Slower bow speed can result to squeaky bow. And this is, of course, in relation to the bow pressure you assert on your string. This also requires a lot of experimentation on your part to see which bow speed and bow pressure is right for you to create the most wanted sound. Faster bow speed, slower bow speed. And you need to find that silver lining in the middle where you sound the best. I hope that somehow helped, and I hope that you're aware of why this is happening in your playing. And it's going to take some time, but I know that, it's gonna get better someday, because I struggled with it as well. I'm still struggling with it, but I'm seeing huge improvements because I'm aware of why it's happening, and I practice and experiment with these exercises to better my tone quality. I don't know, I feel like this somehow went in more to tone quality practice than shaky bow practice, but I still think that these approaches are going to help if you're struggling with a shaky bow. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you found something useful or a new exercise that you want to try, even though you're not struggling as much with a shaky bow. Thank you. Bye.